All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a book that's been called both a lifesaver and, believe it or not, a catastrophe. We're talking about one of the most influential and, controversial books on trauma of our time, The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
And for so many people, countless readers, this book was a complete game changer. It was like it handed them a new language, a whole new way to understand a type of suffering they felt deep down but just couldn't put into words. And with that came this incredible sense of validation.
Its cultural footprint is just huge. This thing flew off the shelves, not just for therapists, but for, regular folks. It became this trauma Bible, a go-to resource that totally changed the conversation around trauma and recovery for everyone.
Okay, but here's where it gets complicated, because alongside all that fame, the book has faced some seriously scathing criticism. We're talking parts of the scientific community basically calling its ideas pseudoscience and challenging the entire foundation it's built on.
So how does that happen? How can one single book be this source of incredible healing for millions of people, but at the exact same time be the focus of so much controversy? It's a huge question, so let's get into it.
Okay, so the core idea of the book, which was pretty revolutionary for a lot of people, is that trauma isn't just a bad memory. It's not just something that happened in the past. It's an experience that literally gets imprinted on your body, physically changing how you work.
And to get this across, van der Kolk uses this really simplified model of the brain. You can think of it as having three parts: the rational, thinking brain, the emotional, feeling brain, and that deep, primitive, reptilian brain that's all about survival. After trauma, these three can end up in a real battle with each other.
And this right here, this slide really gets the heart of it. So on one side, you've got your rational brain. It's slow, it's analytical, it uses language. But then there's the emotional brain, and it's wired for one thing: keeping you alive. It's super fast, totally instinctive, and lives completely in the now. When something traumatic happens, that emotional brain can hijack the whole system. And the rational brain, it can just go offline.
The book has this fantastic analogy to explain this. Think of a part of your brain, the amygdala, as your body's smoke detector. It's designed to go off at the slightest hint of danger. Then you've got another part, the prefrontal cortex, which is like the watchtower. It's supposed to look down and say, "Hey, smoke detector, chill out, it's just burnt toast." But what happens in a traumatized brain is that the smoke detector gets stuck in the on position. It's just blaring all the time, and the watchtower, it kind of loses its power to shut it off.
So this whole idea of a haywire brain-body connection, that's really the key here. And it led van der Kolk to argue for therapies that don't start with talking. No, they start with the body itself. And this slide lays out the big distinction the book makes, right? You have the traditional top-down stuff, like talk therapy, where you use your thinking mind to try and change your feelings. But van der Kolk's whole point is, what happens if that thinking brain is offline? He argues that what you really need are bottom-up therapies. You have to start with the body to calm down that internal alarm system, and that's what lets the thinking brain get back in the game.
And he talks about a whole bunch of these bottom-up approaches. Things you might have heard of, like EMDR, which uses eye movements, and yoga, which helps people literally feel safe in their own bodies again. But also things like neurofeedback, which is about retraining your brainwaves, and even group theater or therapeutic massage.
Right. So the end game for all of these methods is the same: to recalibrate that faulty alarm system we talked about. It's all about getting that balance back so the watchtower can do its job and calm down the smoke detector. The goal is to help people feel like they are finally back in the driver's seat of their own body and mind.
Okay, but this is where the whole story takes a turn and gets, well, a lot more complicated. Because the book and its author have had to face a pretty major reckoning, and it centers on two big controversies. First up, let's talk about the science. Or the criticisms of the science. There's some major arguments out there that question the very evidence the entire book is built on. So critics have raised some really serious red flags. Some have even labeled parts of the work pseudoscience. A huge point of friction is how much it leans on the idea of repressed memories, which is, and I'm putting this mildly, a really controversial idea in psychology. Then you've got people arguing that the book can be misunderstood and even dangerous for non-clinicians, and that it makes some of these therapies sound like miracle cures when the evidence just isn't there yet. But, the controversy doesn't actually stop with the science. The author himself has come under some intense public scrutiny, and that just adds another really complex layer to this whole story. Back in 2018, in a move that honestly sent shockwaves through the mental health community,
He was fired, and not just from anywhere, from the trauma center, the world-renowned clinic that he founded. The official reasons cited were creating a hostile work environment and employee mistreatment, with reports of bullying.
And on top of that, public comments that have been attributed to him, like this one that an attendee at a training reported, well, they'd drawn a ton of criticism. And for a lot of people, these allegations create this really stark, deeply uncomfortable contrast with the compassionate message in his book.
Okay, so where does all this leave us? What are we supposed to make of this book's incredibly complicated legacy?
Look, despite all of the valid criticisms, and they are serious, you just can't ignore the incredible positive impact this book has had. For millions of people, it was the first time they felt truly seen. It was a lifeline that gave them new hope and new paths to healing.
And that leaves us in this really tough spot, right? We're left holding these two totally conflicting truths at the very same time. On one hand, you have a book that helped so many people. On the other, you have a book that is shadowed by these legitimate questions about its science and, of course, the conduct of its author. And that really brings us to the final, and maybe most important takeaway from all of this. It's a question that's way bigger than just one book. And the question is, how do we weigh what helps a person heal, that personal experience, against the demands for hard science and, frankly, ethical conduct? There's no easy answer. But it's a question we all kind of have to wrestle with.